Hey guys, it's Dale Hensel, and this section here is Focus 3, where we talk about audiences. All right, let's dig right in. First off, we're going to talk a little bit about choosing an audience and what that means, and what does it mean for us, what does it mean for picking a niche or whatever. So let's go first and say, what is an audience? An audience, of course, can be described as a group of people with overlapping interests. You can pick any niche, and having an audience is a group of people who actually listen to you, and you have a form of communication with them, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, and email, text, whatever. Your local Rotary Club, anything where you have a group of people gathered that you can talk to is an audience. And if you know what that audience wants and likes, or is there for and interested in, you can do a lot with that. So we're going to talk a little bit about niche versus mass markets and how to choose your audience. First of all, there's all human beings, right? We're all human, and we fit in one audience, okay? And a mass market is a much larger chunk, rather than a niche. It's a much larger chunk of the audience. A smaller niche is like if you did mass market like a diet, right? A niche might be the paleo diet. Okay, so that's a much smaller niche, and a super niche might be the caveman diet, which is running, exercise, everything else. It's a micro niche. Okay, and what we do is we focus on mass markets because we like the fact that they're massive, never-ending pools of people. There's just it's kind of like this: when you take a bucket down to the ocean and you fill it up as much water as you can carry, there's still the ocean there. It doesn't dent the ocean. And mass markets a lot of times are like that. Even though there's a lot of other people on the beach scooping water out of that ocean, it's a very, very, very deep pool. And even the largest companies in the world don't usually suck up so much of the mass market that nobody else can get in. So that's why one of the reasons I like mass markets. Even though they're competitive, it's where all the money is. Excuse me. A niche sometimes is a small segment of that more specialized mass market. And what we're trying to do is make sure that even though you might be focused on a niche, there's kind of a level between super mass market, which is fine, and niche, which is fine. But where are some of the best arenas to be in, or sizes and scales to be in for this sort of project? So an example is the music industry. At the top of the music industry, it's like fans of music. That's everybody who loves music. Period. That's a lot of people. And then another level down, we have genres. Electronic, rock, classical, country, whatever, all sorts of music. Everybody likes their specific thing. And let's say you went to rock and roll. Rock and roll is kind of a niche, or it's a good level of this whole thing. You don't want to talk about all music fans because your voice is going to be diluted. But if you talk about just rock and roll fans, these are all glam bands of the 80s. It kind of comes from where I'm come from. Kiss and Guns N' Roses, etc. This is rock and roll. This is super niche. Guns N' Roses, people who really like Guns N' Roses. This is, it's really, really small niche there. Like, I love Guns N' Roses. So here it's like too small of a niche. It's super niche, and it's just not enough heft, or it's too specialized for you to make a lot of money. So we kind of stay out of that. We actually want to kind of be somewhere between, say, rock and roll, kind of at this level, right? So this is the level you're looking to get at in your audience. So it's not so niche. Rock and roll is kind of a niche, but it's not super niche. It's not super tiny. It can expand over multiple different bands, etc. So this is kind of the level at which you're going to be looking at. And the super niche, just skip. So there's a couple different ways that we're going to go about how to pick yours, and there's later on in the training there's something called lifestyle method and empire method. The lifestyle method is you do one list, you grow it, and it makes you enough money to go be traveling around the world, playing on your laptop. It's designed to build around a lifestyle. So you make enough money to do a lifestyle you want to live, but it's not super huge. It doesn't take a ton of employees. It's very cool. The other one is more of empire method, which means you kind of have to use a slightly different strategy. But here's how we pick what niches to go into. The first one is chase your interests. So if you do what you're interested in, something you love, something you have a lot of knowledge about, something you're very passionate about, that there's some advantages to this. You say, as long as it's the right size, it's not so niche that it doesn't have any money, like, Southern left-handed golfers, right? That's like a super niche little thing, and there may not be any money in that. But if you chase your interests, what happens is you'll be doing something you totally love to do. And when you're doing that, you're going to do the work necessary. You're going to just go you'll get up in the morning, you'll stay up late at night, you'll do the work that's necessary instead of finding 100 ways not to do the work. And you're not going to be fighting yourself quite as often if you do something you love, okay? And when you if you're more likely to do the work, you're more likely to be successful in this. So that's one of the reasons why we suggest for the first niche or the first list, you build on something that you really like, you really care about, you're very knowledgeable, kind of have a passion around. This is why we don't suggest you chase a passion sometimes. Sometimes the things you're passionate about don't have any money in them. And there's just niches that just don't have any money, and it's super hard to become valuable in that niche, and there's just no money. And so sometimes I really rail against entrepreneurs following their passion instead of caring about what the market wants. They follow their passion, they leads right down a road to where there's no money at all, no matter how big you get. If you aren't interested in the subject matter, you're going to get bored. It's not going to hold your attention. You're going to go, oh, what's over there? So that's one of the reasons why we also suggest that you follow a passion sometimes. If you get bored, you're going to find that you're not going to stick around with the project long enough to make it make money. So although the first niche, the first list that you build, I suggest you do it in something you crave and you care about so you can go through all the processes. We call the next one chasing the money, which means you don't approach it from, oh, I love this and everything else. You approach it from more like a business. And it is, you say, I'm going to build a business. It doesn't matter if I love it or not. I'm product agnostic. I'm market agnostic. I just know all the pieces that I want to bring in to the marketplace to be able to access the marketplace and get what I need, and I can hire what I need too. You work this like a job. It doesn't care what the product is, you're not as passionate about it, and you can also hire that. And hiring it really is tapping into one of my favorite things, which is called the producer mindset. And the producer mindset is you're like a movie producer. You bring in the actors, you bring in the financing, you bring in the cameraman, you bring in the guys who build the sets, and you're acting like a producer and to get a movie made. And this chasing the money is very similar to that. This strategy is very similar. It's part of the empire strategy where you're building an empire. You're building all the right pieces in there, and you plug people in who are really good at the individual pieces. Like, you don't just hire random people for the camera. You hire the best camera guys you can get and can afford. You hire the best director. You hire the best actors, so that you can afford. And so same thing with this is if you approach this with any industry, it wouldn't matter what industry it was. I could not even know what the product is, but I could still build this in that industry because of I can hire people who understand the industry and can write the copy and write to the market, but all the rest of it's mechanical, right? I have the Facebook in place, I have the email in place, I have the funnel in place. Everything else is mechanical. So I like chasing the money pieces, and here's some of the pros and cons about that. The pros for chasing the industry is, one, there's multiple markets you can go into, and you're not nearly as afraid of going into mass markets because there's just a lot of people there. It's easier to reach sometimes, a lot of times, just because it's like, hey, there's the ocean. There's the land, there's the ocean. Keep going one way, you hit the ocean. It's not too tough. There's a lot more money in mass markets and approaching it this way, and sometimes way more opportunity for joint ventures and other business deals, which we'll get into a little bit later. Now, the problem with chasing the money sometimes is it may cost more money up front, because you have to take time and do the research on the market so you really know what the market wants. It may bore the hell out of you. You may not be interested, may not hold your attention. You won't stick with it. And really, another thing is when you start doing the research, a lot of markets that I've had to go into, I had to do a hell of a lot of research just to understand the language of that market, and then I could start speaking to that. Then I could understand what the research was telling me. I went into started looking at the cryptocurrency markets, and there was a huge wall of vocabulary I had to scale just to understand what the heck people were talking about in that market. And so I said, all right, I need to really, I really need to understand that. The first thing I need to do is get a vocabulary lesson. And as soon as I understood the vocabulary, I said, okay. Now I understand the vocabulary. Now I can understand what the market wants and what it means by it says it wants X, Y, Z, and I didn't know what the vocabulary was. Now I get it. And some of the other cons are you may not have the resources to pull all of this together yet, and that just may take time. So but I like going kind of this method. Agora does this method. If you guys know Agora, they were several years ago, they were a $500 million a year company that were in 18 different markets in health, wealth, and romance, I believe, health and wealth and love. And they basically are in multiple markets, about 18 different markets, and they do this. They basically build a list and communicate to the list, and they know that list so well, and they market to that list so well all the time, and they make a lot of money. Now, I think it was last year they did around 800 million. I think this year they were on track for $1 billion. So it's a very effective company. It's been around, 20, 30 years. I don't remember how old Agora is. It's been around for a while. But this is kind of the same model as Agora. If you understand how to approach this as a business and you say, I just need to put the right pieces in place and then engage the market through a specialist, then you can build multiple lists and multiple segments with multiple audiences. Some of the audiences and the top industries there's some evergreen markets. There's a lot of them that we have a PDF at the end of this, or in the class section, that really talks about some of the markets that you could go into, some we know that are there, and you can look at it and say, hey, this is interesting to me or not, and use that. So check out the PDF. Some of the top, obviously, markets like health, wealth, and romance. That's like what Agora primarily focuses on. There's some hobbies that do really well as well, such as woodworking, survivalists, or guns. And those are all great. The like steampunk, I don't know how much money's in that market, but it's a hobby, and I don't know enough about it to even comment on it. So really check out the PDF at the end of this, and you can